Welcome to growthtofreedom.com, the show that brings you inspiration, transformation, and leadership. We're helping you connect the dots, see the blind spots, and get unstuck so you can go out and generate more leads, more sales, more profits. More importantly, so you can go out and have a bigger reach, a bigger impact, and make a bigger contribution. I have a question for you. Are you at a point right now, especially in the world that we live in, where you're struggling at some degree with maybe overwhelm or burnout, or feel a little bit of a lack of control, or maybe you're concerned about, the direction of your career, or maybe your finances? Well, if so, that we have got an expert who's uniquely qualified and a living legend and qualified to share with you his insights, his wisdom on what will work today to help you achieve personal, professional, and your financial goals faster and easier than you ever possibly imagined. I've been impacted by his work all the way back in the early 1990s, mid 90s, many programs. I mean, I've gotten dozens and dozens of programs. Nightingale Conant, which is no longer around. I bet you 15, 20 different courses. He's published over approximately 500 audio and video learning programs. He's written close to 100 books, 4 per year for over 25 years. He's literally helped over 3 million plus people that they can count. There's probably another couple of million they can't count all over the world. And guess what? He can help you as well. His name is Brian Tracy. And Brian, it's so amazing to have you here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure. And I'm so happy to hear about your success. I found that sometimes just one idea can change your whole life. If it comes to you at the right time and the right way, it just sort of connects and you change, like taking a different road, and you're never the same again.
And in fact, that inspired the theme of this segment. We're celebrating 300 episodes, 30 years of my business, and the theme is one breakthrough away. You're literally one breakthrough away from that next big breakthrough in your life, and a celebration of mentors, of clients and friends that have been joining us on this journey. So Brian, I'd love to dive right into it, because you're a wealth of knowledge and proven strategy, not tactical. I mean, although there is lots of tactics, timeless, that will be good today. It was good yesterday, and it'll be good in the next 20, 50 years. It's legacy work that you do, which is so impactful. As you see the world today, I mean, we've had a lot of changes, right, over the last 9 months with the crisis and more. What do you see are some of the biggest mistakes, Brian, that most people are, making as they're trying to navigate what's going on?
Well, I wrote a book a few years ago on crisis management. I spoke to so many companies, and one of the questions they asked is, how do you deal with a crisis? How do you deal with problems? How do you solve major problems, and so on? So I did enormous research. I read and read and read and read and read, and I put together what I call 21s. And I've got about 20 different books that are 21 ways to do this, 21 great ways, 21 so on. And so I wrote down 21 ways to deal with any crisis. And number one step is stay calm. Stay calm. And number two is get the facts. And number three is accept responsibility. And it goes on and on. And by the time I get through the first three, my hour is up when I'm talking to companies and organizations. But and I'm not trying to sell the book. What I'm saying is that your mind is so powerful. It's a wonderful mind if you use it properly. Just like if you have a beautiful car, you can drive in a beautiful car. But if you swerve all over the road, if you're drunk, if the car is broken down, well, then it's not that helpful. So your mind is like a wonderful computer. You have a conscious mind, which is what you do all day long, and you have a subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is basically a storehouse. It remembers everything that you ever do or think, and but it's a neutral part of your life. It does not create. What creates is what is called the superconscious mind. And this has been talked about for 4,000 years. And the superconscious mind is this mind that connects with the entire universe. And when you set a goal for yourself and write it down, it's taken by the subconscious mind and turned over like a team of computer experts. It's turned over to this other team. And this superconscious works 24 hours a day to bring into your life exactly what you want at exactly the right time in exactly the right way. And so if you use your mind properly, you can accomplish anything. If you want to become wealthy, if you want to be healthy, if you want to have a successful family or a business, just write it down. And it's very important. Goals that are not in writing have no effect. And so write it down. Only 3% of adults have written goals, and everybody works for them. They are the wealthiest people out there. I mean, here's a great example. The richest man in the world for many years was Bill Gates. Bill Gates reads 2 books a week, and then he annotates the books and writes down, underlines, and then he takes what he's underlined and written down, he puts it into a separate booklet, and then he reviews it. And so Warren Buffett, and the two of them compete back and forth. Warren Buffett has been the richest man in the world several times, and Warren Buffett reads 5 hours a day. He reads an average of about a book a day. His assistant, his partner, Charlie Munger, does the same thing. And what they say is if you're not reading, you really have no chance in today's world because things are moving so quickly. One of the things you just mentioned, that you're one idea away from great success, and that is true, but you never know what the idea is, so you have to collect lots of ideas. People ask me, how can you write a book every 3 months? And the answer is, I keep gathering information, and then I set it down, and I have a system for book writing. And by the way, if anybody is thinking about writing a book, go to my website, briantracy.com, and there's a 20-part system on how to write a book and get published. It's free. Just go and get it. And countless people all over the world have used that system to write a book and get published. And I just won't go into it anymore, but it's very simple stuff. Great truths, by the way, are always very simple. You know.
Very true. Very true. You know, the great quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes: I wouldn't give a fig to be on this side of complexity, but I'd give my life to be on the other side of simplicity. Right? Which is so powerful. Now, Brian, in your journey, right? I mean, you have helped millions and millions and millions of people. I want to ask to give context to viewers and listeners who have followed you, as well as those who might be new to your work. Right. Which means they, you know, I don't know how someone wouldn't know Brian Tracy. Either way, why are you doing what you're still doing today when you could have, you know, gone on to other things? I'm just curious. What would you say to that? Why are you doing what you're doing?
Well, it's a combination. I've been asked that many times, and it's a combination. First of all, I love my work, and I learned decades ago that if you find something that you love and you put your whole heart into it, you'll never work another day in your life. That's Napoleon Hill's advice. And so therefore, your main job in life is to find something that you love to do, and then put your whole heart into doing that really, really well. And it takes, I learned this many years ago. I was building my business in professional speaking, and I'd been speaking for about 3 years, and my audiences were growing. And a friend of mine, a woman who was the head of the National Speakers Association, Patricia Fripp, said, it takes 5 to 7 years for you to be successful in this business or in any business. 5 to 7 years. And that's interesting because I had started reading Peter Drucker, and Peter Drucker said the same thing. It's about 7 years. It takes you 2 years to, when you start a business, it takes you 2 years to turn the corner and start to earn more than you're putting out. Most businesses are in a race against time in the first 2 years, like a plane hurtling toward the earth. And if you learn and apply and learn and apply, you pull the plane out of the dive and you start to earn more than it's costing you. So the first 2 years are where you learn. The next 2 years are where you pay back all the money that you invested or borrowed in the first 2 years. And the next 3 years is what it takes for you to become successful. So it's 2 years, 4 years, 7 years. And I said, oh, that's not going to work for me. That's no way I'm going to spend that much time. I'm going to be successful faster. And no matter how hard I worked, it took 7 years. And so that's one of the great lessons of life. And Peter Drucker, the great management consultant, just taught it as sort of like a throwaway comment. Oh, by the way, it takes 7 years for a business to be successful. And if you look at whether it's Microsoft or Apple or any of the business, it's 7 years. And sometimes Apple, very interestingly, Apple got into a real problem and almost went bankrupt in the late 90s. And so it was successful, but then it went back into a dive, and it was on the verge of bankruptcy when they gave the business back to Steve Jobs. They pushed him out because of his particular personality. And so he went off and started, I think it's Pixar. He started a couple of other companies that turned into multi-billion-dollar companies. And finally, they asked him, would you come back to Apple and just take a look around? And you know the company, and you're the major shareholder still. Would you help us out? So he walked around and just asked questions. How's it going? What are you doing? How's it going? What are you doing? And so on. And then finally, they said, well, why don't you just take over the company, take it back, basically, and we will step down. So the executives running the company said, okay. So he went in and got the numbers and said, oh my God, he's got 2.5 months before bankruptcy. The company was on the verge of collapse, and he had no money. He was in a really tight situation. It's a great story. It's been published. So what did he do? Well, he needed an enormous amount of money. He needed $100 million to save the company. And so he had been, from the time he started, he had been sort of attacking and insulting Bill Gates. And Microsoft is an old company, stodgy, not creative, and so on. It's got the wrong business model. Microsoft's business model was an open system so that anybody could write programs for Microsoft. Apple's business model was a closed system, is all secret, is nobody could work on Microsoft or on Apple program. So now they've been on stage in universities debating each other, going back and forth. And Apple, Steve Jobs, was always insulting Bill Gates. Well, now he said, now where am I going to get $100 million? The only person he knew that had that kind of money was Bill Gates. So he called him up and said, I need some help because I'm on the verge of bankruptcy. And I know I've said some unkind things to you and about you in the past, but now I need $100 million. And will you lend it to me? And Bill Gates said, Steve, Apple is too important a company to go broke. And not only will I give you the 100 million, but I will buy stock in your company. So it's not a loan, has to be paid back. I'll just become a shareholder and I'll provide you with the money. He had 2.5 months before he was bankrupt, and he gave him the $100 million, and the rest is history. Wonderful story, wonderful story. Even though he'd been insulting him and attacking him, everything year after year after year, and he said, "No, your company is too important, and I'll invest in your company." And now you saw what happened. The world. Imagine this: everybody lives on an iPhone. I'll ask my audience, because one of the most important things in marketing is what role does your product play in the life of your customer? Is it a large role, a small role? I said, for example, today, the iPhone plays an important role. Everybody uses an iPhone. It plays an important role. I said, have you ever had the experience where you got in your car and you drove to work, and halfway to work, you realized you left your phone at home. What did you do? I'll ask 1,000 people, and they'll all make the same. They turned around and went back and got their iPhone, because this plays such an important role in a person's life. They did a survey last year. They asked their customers, how many of you are going to buy another iPhone in the future? Answer, 90%. If 90% of your current customers are going to buy from you again, it means that Apple was the first company to have $1 trillion of profit in the bank. This year it hit 2 trillion. And it's the most profitable company in the history of the world. Why? It's because it has made their products essential to their customers. You cannot think of not having an iPhone. Most remarkable thing. And so therefore, if you're in business, one of the things that you have to do is you have to create a product or offer a product that's really important to your customers. So they want it and need it, and it plays an important role in their lives. Other than that, you become dispensable. They can buy from you or buy from someone else or buy from someone else. So it's very, very important. All the companies that are successful are companies that have made themselves really important to their customers.
And as you're listening or you're watching right now, how would your business change if you became an essential, right? A necessity, if you will, or created a pane of disconnect, or created the cell phone stick rate? Or how would you be impacted if you just took the 3 of 21 strategies that Brian shared with you on dealing with crisis right now at home and in your business? From staying calm, getting the facts, accepting responsibility, or tapping into the super conscious mind, going beyond the conscious, going beyond the subconscious to the super conscious. How would it transform your life, your business, your career? And Brian talked about loving what you do. It'll never be a day of work the rest of your life. Now, Brian, out of respect to time, do we still have a couple minutes?
Sure.
All right. You brought up the story about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, right? And I will do it as an investment in the company. I heard you. This is an obscure fact, and hopefully you can remember this. You used to share at a sales training. I attended one of your sales trainings many moons ago, probably almost two decades ago, 20 years ago. And you talked about a study, I believe, that you or your team had done about executives at IBM, and how when they invested $1 in their personal development or education or investing in themselves for personal growth, you had cited a number as far as the translated growth that they'd gotten versus those who didn't invest in themselves. Do you happen to remember that? I'd love you to share that, because, you know, the best investment we have is ourselves, right? And there's nobody better to share that than you as a legend in this industry for people to really pay attention to this.
Well, it's a great point, because I'll tell you a great story too. What I said is that for every $1 you invest in yourself, you get $10 back in income and in personal value. It's just astonishing. Is you do not know where it's going to come from or when it will come from. But if you just read a good book and underline it and think about it, what will happen is that you'll attract, almost like the law of attraction, you'll attract another $10. And I was giving a 3-day seminar in Dallas about 3 years ago. And in the audience was a very, very successful and well-known businessman and best-selling author, wealthy. And he was in the audience, a good friend of mine. And he stood up when I was talking about the importance of investing in yourself. And he stood up, and everybody knew him, and I knew him. And it was kind of like we're talking from the audience. And he said, I'd like to say something about that comment. He said, when I was 18 years old, I said that, and he said, that man is wrong. He said, what Brian told you is false. It's not true. It's not going to give you $10 back. It's going to give you $50 or $100 back. When I first went to a Brian Tracy seminar, I was 18 years old, and I had to be forced to go because I'd never heard about personal development. He said, and you talked about investing in yourself. He said, so I started to do it. He said, by the time I was 24, I was a millionaire. He said, today I'm 35 and I have more money that I could spend in the rest of my life. And it's all because of this man, all because of what he told me. Is the more you invest in yourself, the more ideas connect and interconnect with others. And the more you see, the more alert you are, and you activate this superconscious mind. And the superconscious mind will bring you exactly what you need, exactly when you're ready for it. And so therefore, what you have to do is get ready. You get ready by learning and practicing and studying and so on. And if you'll do that. So anyways, he stood up and everybody cheered and applauded and so on. So I've had wonderful, wonderful stories of people who just took these ideas and applied them. And I consider myself to be a synthesizer rather than an originator who's come up like Einstein and so on. What I do is I take all of these ideas and I put them together and I synthesize them into a new synthesis. And that's what I do. I'll give you a wonderful story. I just love the story. I was doing my big seminar here in San Diego a few years ago, and we got a call from someone in New Zealand, and they wanted to come to this seminar, and it was a businessman, and he wanted to bring his key people. And what we did is we insisted that everybody sit at different tables, so that instead of sitting at the same table and talking to the same people, you talk to different people. And he said, but we'd like to stay and sit together at the same table. Would that be okay? Because and this was 8 people, and we were charging, I think, $1,000 a person. And we said yes, because we're business people. So he and his team flew up. They flew up from New Zealand, and they came to my seminar, and it was a 3-day seminar. And about the second day, the wife of the head of the company came to me and said, would it be possible for my husband to have a personal chat with you? And I said, sure. He's a good customer. So we went off to the side and we sat down, and he told me, he said, he's built a trucking company. He said he'd been driving a truck for years. He had 2 boys and a wife. They had a small house, and they spent everything that they earned to stay alive and so on. And then one day he got my book, Maximum Achievement, and he began to read the book. And it totally changed his life. It totally changed the way he thought, especially writing down goals and then working on them. Well, he said, first goal he said he wanted to be wealthy. He had to own his own truck, because the way it works in the trucking business is that there's 1/3 of the revenue from the people who use your trucking business goes to the driver, 1/3 goes to the owner of the truck, and 1/3 goes to the trucking company. And a lot of truck drivers are independents. They own their own trucks, so they earn more money. So he said the first thing he'd have to do is own his own truck. So he sat with his wife and his kids, and he said, look, we're going to have to really cut down on our expenses so we can save enough money so we can buy a truck rather than my working just for someone else who owns the truck. And surprise, surprise, they earned enough money within a year to buy their own truck. So now he's earning twice as much as he was before. And they decided they would keep on saving money, keep on building up. And they bought a second truck and a third truck. Now he's the biggest freight hauler in New Zealand. They have 300 trucks that they work with everywhere. He's a multi-millionaire. Anyway, he would read this book and underline it and read it and underline it. And his wife said, why do you keep reading that book? He said, because it's really had a major impact on my life. She said that I should read it as well. And he said, okay, but you have to underline it with a different colored pen. And so he underlined it with a red pen. She underlined it with a blue pen, so we could see what she wrote down. And then the boys, they're now 12 years old, 12 and 14 years old. They noticed the impact of this book. So they said, could they read it? So they read it, and they used a different color, black, and somebody else wrote green. And this was the family book. And you could open the book, and the book was like a rainbow. Every single line was underlined, and notes in the side and everything else as they built their business. into the biggest trucking company in New Zealand. And he was just an ordinary guy. He's just a working guy. He's a guy who didn't have any education or no great advantages. But somehow, because of this super conscious ability, he and his kids, they lived in a beautiful home. I mean, it was just an absolutely wonderful story. And I never forget it my whole life, is what they did is whenever they got an idea, they would apply the idea. And that's the key, is if you want to be successful at anything, write it down, set it as a goal, and then you'll start to attract ideas that will make it possible. But you have to then take action. And that's the same thing that Drucker said. He said the purpose of strategic planning, the purpose of marketing, the purpose of everything is action now, action this day. And this is one of the great mottos, is action this day. Action now, take action immediately. Don't wait until you see somebody else doing it. When you get an idea, move immediately. And I can guarantee you that you will eventually be a big success.
And speaking of taking action, Brian, if someone's been inspired about tapping into the superconscious and, breaking free from overwhelm, burnout, to up-level their financial impact, their business, their career, and a lot more, deal with uncertainty in the world in a lot better way, where can people go to connect with you, tap into your amazing resources and tools?
Well, all my stuff is available worldwide. I've written 90 books now. Today I'll be working on completing number 91. So the stuff is available worldwide. Go to my website. But even better, people say, do you sell books? No, there's no profit in books. So therefore, go to Amazon and buy it. You can get it 30% off and delivered almost overnight. So if you want to get any of this material, it's all available worldwide, as you know.
So I want to encourage you, go to briantracy.com to check out the resources he talked about. If you want to learn how to write a book, Jim Rohn, the great Jim Rohn said, any life worth living is the life worth recording. And recording, ideally, your mastery. And a book gives you an ability to do that, to take your thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of hours, and condense it into a guidebook that can become a transformational tool for others, including yourself, through the process. So go to briantracy.com. That's briantracy.com. Get his resources on Amazon. Brian's, what's one last thing that I should have asked you that we didn't get a chance to cover before we wrap up?
Well, I think you did a very good job. Thank you very much. We could sit and talk all day long.
Yes, we could.
If you look behind me, I have about 6,000 books in my home. All my bookshelves are double booked, and I've read most of them, and some of them more than once. And I still read about 3 hours a day. And what it does is it's like physical exercise. If you exercise 30 to 60 minutes a day, you'll be one of the fittest people in the world. If you read 2 to 3 hours a day, you'll be one of the best informed and ultimately one of the most financially successful people. There's no limit to what you can accomplish except for the limits that you place on your own mind.
And there you have it. Readers are leaders, and leaders are readers. Brian Tracy is living proof. I encourage you, take action with what he's shared today. Tapping into your super conscious, being able to tap in and get through crisis with his 3 of 21 steps, to be able to realize that there's simplicity on the other side of complexity, that there's something to be had about investing in yourself and getting an ROI on that, and a whole lot more. And by the way, you can come back to this episode, this series, at growthtofreedom.com/300. That's growthtofreedom.com/300. If you never want to miss an episode, go to growthtofreedom.com/subscribe. Seize the day. See you next time in another segment of growthtofreedom.com. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Are you struggling to get a steady flow of new clients every day? Or maybe hit a plateau or hit a wall in growing your business? Well, let's help you solve this problem today. Let's review your business and have a conversation. You can do that for free today at Breakthrough. breakthroughstrategycall.com. That's breakthroughstrategycall.com. In addition, if you're looking for a simple way to implement some of what we've been talking about in today's episode, then I want to encourage you to get our free small business toolkit. You can get that at activate.breakthrough3x.com. That's activate.breakthrough3x.com. If you'd like access to the special resources and all the show notes for this special episode, make sure to visit growthtofreedom.com.